tuned in to the Community Cats podcast. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Community Cats podcast. I'm your host, Stacy LeBaron. I've been involved helping homeless cats for over 30 years with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. The goal of this podcast is to expose you to amazing people who are improving the lives of cats. I hope these interviews will help you learn how you can turn your passion for cats into action. And today we're speaking with Lara Semple. Lara is currently working for the conservation charity Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, Saving Wildcats, based at the Highland Wildlife Park. Saving Wildcats aims to restore wildcats to the Scottish Highlands by breeding in captivity for release. Lara has been involved in cat welfare from a young age as her family ran a boarding cattery for those going on holiday. She graduated from Liverpool John Moores University in Bachelor's of Science of Zoology in 2014 and a Master's of Science in International Nature Conservation in 2018 from Göttingen University, Germany. Her current role in the field team of the project involves mitigating against hybridization with domestic cats through trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, work in Cairngorms National Park, Scotland. A lot of the TNVR work with Saving Wildcats involves proactive work with feral cats via the huge network of camera traps the organization has across the release site and through door knocking and community events. In her spare time, Lara volunteers for UK national animal welfare charity Cats Protection to carry out TNVR work within a wider area of the release site for the wildcats. She also fosters cats and kittens, which she says is very rewarding seeing them going to new loving homes. Lara, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Wow. So you really have done a lot with cats from a very young age. I ask this question of all of my guests. I feel like I get a sense of your passion in the bio that I just read, but is there anything else to share? Like, why are you so passionate about cats and why are you so passionate about wildcats?
So I'm passionate about improving cat welfare mainly, whether it be a feral cat, a pet cat, or a wild cat. I find the life of feral cats fascinating. The way that they use the landscape and find resources to survive in the harsh environment of the Scottish Highlands is incredible. For example, we have one feral cat that we know of called Craig, who we've known about for years. He was a young tabby cat when we first saw him on camera, and his territory is 10 kilometers squared. And then we trapped him and neutered him, and he's still around years later going about his territory, and I just find it fascinating. In terms of wildcats, they are amazing, and they deserve to be in our landscape as they are an iconic species. There's so many legends around the wildcats in the local clan culture, and they're struggling because of human impacts. Therefore, I feel we have a responsibility to help them thrive and bring them back.
So tell me about wildcats. What is the difference between a wildcat versus a domestic cat?
So wildcats are Britain's last remaining native felid cat species, and the population is critically endangered in Scotland. We talk about wildcats in Scotland, but they're actually the European wildcat species. They're the same species wandering around the European continent. So the European wildcat crossed into Britain at the end of the last ice age around 9,000 years ago. And they're once widespread. Wildcats are now on the brink of extinction in Scotland. This is mainly due to habitat loss, persecution, and more recently breeding with domestic cats. So European wildcats crossed into Britain at the last ice age, and domestic cats are descended from the African wildcat, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, and this is also known as the Near Eastern wildcat. So they both belong to the same domestic cat lineage, and they have a common ancestor about 1.4 million years ago. And although they are different species, they can interbreed and produce viable and fertile offspring, which can lead to the genetic extinction of Scottish wildcats.
Do folks own wildcats, or are they just off living in the Highlands?
No, so they're fierce, they're untamable, famously untamable. So you can't, they're not domesticated species, they're native wild species of cat that lives relatively near humans because humans are everywhere, but they won't be tamed and they won't kind of take food from you and they won't be within humans' lives, really.
So tell me a little bit about the research that you're doing up in the Scottish Highlands. You said the wildcats are at risk of extinction, so there must only be a few of them out there. So tell me about this project, the research that you're doing, and the role that trap, neuter, vaccinate, and return plays in it. So I guess that's a pretty loaded statement right there. So just if you could just share with us, the work that you're doing to ensure that these wildcats are having an opportunity to continue to exist with us, but then also this trap, neuter, return project that you have for the domestic cats is fascinating too.
So by the 1880s, due to a combination of land use change and increased intensification of predator control, there were no wildcats left in England or Wales, and they were pushed into the far north of Scotland. However, during the First World War, there's less gamekeeping activity, meaning less persecution, so they started to come back. However, then this was in the 1960s, there was a height of hybridization. This means that wildcats were more likely to come into contact with domestic cats than other wildcats, and they were catching diseases and interbreeding with feral cats. And then in the 1970s, there was a 95% loss of rabbit populations, which is their key food source, after multiple outbreaks of myxomatosis. And then since the 1990s, there's been research and conservation projects working to protect the wildcat from extinction. However, in 2019, the IUCN, which stands for the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Cat Specialist Group, so this is just a group of experts, conducted an independent review of wildcat conservation, and they concluded that there is no longer a viable wildcat population living in Scotland, and their recommendation was an increased focus on breeding for release to safeguard wildcats from extinction, and this is how Saving Wildcats came into being. So Saving Wildcats is a 6-year partnership project dedicated to the conservation of wildcats through the breeding and release into the wild. So our first set of wildcat releases occurred in the summer of 2023. As you mentioned before, we're based at the Highland Wildlife Park in the Cairngorms National Park. And the Cairngorms National Park is the largest national park in the UK. It's over 4,500 square kilometres of countryside, and it contains huge mountains, lochs, rivers, and huge areas of ancient Caledonian pine forests. The main team is split into 2 teams. We've got the ex situ team. So this is the team that looks after the cats while they're out of their natural habitat, so in the park. And then the field team, which is what I'm a part of, which look after the release site, doing ecological surveys, working with the landowners and tracking the released cats. So in 2022, the UK's first wildcat breeding for release centre was built within the wildlife park, away from the visitors. So it's away from human interaction. And the breeding for release centre was a huge undertaking, and it consists of 8 breeding enclosures where wildcats are paired up for breeding, and 20 pre-release enclosures where the kittens are moved to learn how to be a wildcat and develop their new skills to survive in the wild. Unlike domestic cats, wildcats have a breeding season, which is between January and March. And this is when the wildcats are paired up. The gestation is the same as a domestic cat, around 65 days. And females will have 2 to 4 kittens in 1 litter. And they usually only have 1 litter per year. And the process of reintroducing a cat until releasing a cat into the wild takes approximately 8 months of painstaking work and dedication from the whole team. To date, we've released 28 wildcats into the landscape, and they're each fitted with a GPS radio collar prior to being released. The collars last approximately 9 to 10 months, depending on the weather and the cat behaviour. We use a soft release strategy or a delayed release, which means that we build multiple pens in the landscape and place the wildcats in there temporarily for them to acclimatise and reduce their stress levels. over several days. And they're monitored intensively during this period with live stream cameras. And then we open the small cat doors at the top of the pens at 4 a.m. in the morning. And the cats can emerge when they feel brave enough to do so. So it's incredible to watch them take their first steps into the wild. They're provided with food, supplementary feeding, for as long as they stay around the pens. So 19 wildcats were released in the first year, and these were further reinforced last year. 2 more wildcats were released in the north of the site, including 1 male, in the hope he would potentially breed with the 2 female wildcats that have adopted territories there. And another 5 were released from locations in the south of the site, where there still are unoccupied areas of suitable habitat.
Are you able to track them to this day? I know you said the GPS was lasting about 9 to 10 months, so you must not be able to track them after that period of time, or do you still see them on the cameras?
So, they last 9 to 10 months on average. Some of the collars we have replaced with new collars, so we've been able to track some of the females through their first breeding season and with their new litters of kittens, which has been incredible. But a lot of the cats now, especially the first year cats, they don't have working collars. So we kind of know where they are because they've got established territories and we see them on cameras, but we don't know where they are all the time.
You don't have anything identifying on them, like with the trap, neuter, return cats, we will tip their ears just to try and be able to identify them, I guess, visually from their markings is really the only way you'd be able to tell one cat from the other.
Yes, so we have a Excel sheet known as the catalogue, which displays images of each cat, so we can identify them through their markings. So that's been really helpful for us to keep track of them after the collars have died.
I assume they're all microchipped?
Yes, they're all microchipped as well, which is helpful. If ever one was killed on the road, we'd be able to track back to see who that was.
Tomahawk Live Trap exceeds customers' expectations by providing them with the highest quality humane animal control products available. Check out their new Pro Series Gravity Door Trap. They feature a door that sets automatically when you open it. No hook or plate setting needed. Use discount code Keep It Humane for 10% off your order at livetrap.com.
TNR work isn't easy. You trap them, you neuter them, you release them back into a world that barely notices they're there. It can be exhausting. It can feel never-ending. But the work you're doing, it matters, especially to the cats who rely on you. At Rescue Disinfectants, we see the work you do, the work few are willing to take on. Our powerful, vet-trusted disinfectants help you clean traps, carriers, cages, and litter boxes without the harsh chemicals that could harm the fragile lives you're fighting for. Let Rescue be there for them and for you. Visit rescuedisinfectants.com to help reduce disease risk and support better outcomes for community cats.
In a recent study, 97% of respondents said that pets are family. Communities can play a vital role in helping to keep families together. Whether it's reuniting lost pets with their owners, donating pet supplies or funds for pet owners in need, or offering short or long-term fostering, people can help keep pets and their people together. We just have to show them how. Did you know there are resources you can use to help bring attention to the programs you offer to help them do just that? From public service announcements, short videos, printable posters, online and social graphics, and much more. Find your resources at www.petsandpeopletogether.org/campaign-resources. #be a helper.
Tell me about the Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, and Return program.
So for over 4 years, we've been surveying and identifying feral domestic cats for TNVR with the support of the public, trail cameras, and extensive on-the-ground outreach with local communities. TNVR here is a licensed practice, so it's a requirement for us to have the license from the government to be able to re-release the feral domestic cats back into their environment because they're classed as non-native species. Once a cat is identified, and I'm satisfied that it's not owned. We mostly use automatic traps, and they're deployed with the permission of the landowner. And the traps are set overnight, which could be different to a lot of the people doing TNVR where they're listening. And they're checked within a 12-hour period. And most of the time we use technology such as live stream cameras to notify us when a cat has set off the trap, so we can attend immediately. Once trapped, cats are moved to our veterinary facility, which is at the Highland Wildlife Park. So we have our own veterinary facility and our own vets at the park, which is a great resource. The vets do a final further check on signs of ownership before performing the full physical examination. And before the surgery, all of our cats are tested for FIV and FELV via the SNAP test. Obviously, if negative, the cat will be neutered, vaccinated, and given a spot-on treatment. And afterwards, the cats are monitored. And once the vets are happy, then I can return the cat to its outdoor home. And most of the time, we monitor them for a few days after the surgery via the camera traps. So far, within the project, we've neutered 30 feral cats within the release site. However, through my work with cats protection, we've managed to do a much higher number, over 100 now, which has been invaluable to the wildcat conservation.
When you said you wanted to determine that the cat was not owned or lost, or how do you determine that it's really a feral cat or a cat that should be trapped, neutered, returned? This is a hot topic in the States, is really making a decision as to whether the cat is a cat to be returned versus not to be returned. So, because so many people will feed cats, but they don't tell you that they're feeding them, or they're caring about that cat, but they have that cat being outdoors. So do you have a process that you go through when you trap a cat to determine if it is a trap, neuter, return candidate?
Yes, that's one of the biggest issues that we're facing at the moment as well, and it takes up so much time, as I'm sure you know. We have a buffer zone on, so say a cat is found on one of our cameras and we've never seen it before, we have no information. We'll be doing a leaflet drop and door knocking, and also posting videos on social media in the local area to try and find if that cat's owned. And then we'll wait several days to see if anybody responds. If not, we set the trap. And then if we manage to get the cat, then we'll be assessing on behavior. Obviously, we check for it, see if it's wearing a collar. And then I will check to see if it's got a microchip in the field. Most of the time, not, unfortunately. It's kind of underrepresented here in Scotland. Not many cats are microchipped, even if they are owned. And then the vets will do a proper check with the microchip scanner on the skin when we get the cat back to the veterinary facility, and we'll check behavior again. So that's kind of most of our checks for whether it's owned or not. Unfortunately, we have had cases where we do neuter pet cats and people have got angry over it, which is very frustrating for us because we feel we've done as much as possible to be able to not neuter somebody's pet. Yeah, very difficult and a hot topic. Hopefully within Scotland, within the next couple of years, we'll have a compulsory microchipping law brought in. So therefore, if your cat isn't microchipped, we can assume that it is feral.
So much of our problems around trap, neuter, return, and our community cat colonies that are out there, so much of it stems from the lack of access to affordable veterinary care for owned pets. So you're talking about you have neutered an owned cat. Any cat that's not spayed or neutered outside with 4 paws on the ground is a candidate for breeding, right? And so I feel like that's a huge risk for our environment. But many of those cats are owned, and there may be folks out there, in many cases, there are folks out there that might not have access to care or be able to afford care. At least here in the States, it can be very expensive to get your cat spayed or neutered. And as your income level goes down, the number of cats you have go up, which means that obviously if I can't afford to get my 2 cats spayed or neutered, then I'm going to have 6 cats, right? And then I'm going to have more cats. And so it makes sense that if a family can't afford the cost for 1 or 2 cats, the risks of having that population grow and having a community cat colony start in that area is really very high. Are those challenges out there in the Highlands and northern Scotland? Are there affordability or accessibility challenges to get your owned cats spayed or neutered?
Luckily, through Cats Protection, they do offer free neutering through the charity. So that's an excellent resource, and it helps people at least get the basic veterinary care for their cat. But we are pushing kind of prepubescent neutering here as well, because even the vets sometimes say incorrect information, saying you have to have a litter of kittens before we'll spay your cat and stuff like this, which is incorrect. So sometimes it's about educating the vets as well. Luckily, the vets that we use, the veterinary practice in Aviemore, the Strathspey vets, they're very good. And all the TNVR, the cats that we bring to them through Cats Protection, and all the pet cats as well, they do an excellent job.
I'm going to circle back before we have to close with about the wildcats. So do you have a target goal of the number of cats that you want to release back into that area?
So we have a target. So we're EU Life funded, and part of the plan for that funding was to release 60 wildcats from the park. So hopefully we'll be releasing more wildcats this summer, and we will be very close to that target.
That's excellent. And there's enough space for the wildcats so they're not encroaching in on neighborhoods. You talk about a buffer zone. So I'm assuming that where they're being released, it's just so far away that you're not going to see wildcats walking down the street.
So the area we kind of work in, there are a few small towns, and the wildcats are kind of on the edge of those. Unfortunately, I think they're kind of adapting to the landscape, which is so heavily impacted by humans. And their favorite prey source is also rabbits, which is also on that side of the river. So their preference is to go that way for the prey. So yeah, although they can be on the edge of towns, unfortunately, which isn't ideal for us. We wanted them to be in the wilder areas, but I think it's what we're dealing with at the moment in terms of the landscape. I mean, most excitingly, we've had wildcat kittens born in the wild to some of our released wildcats last year. This was an estimated 24 kittens being born last year. So on top of the 28 that we released, we had 24 kittens. Obviously, the mortality rate for these wildcat kittens in their first year can be quite high, but we're hopeful that some of them definitely do survive. And so it's a very exciting time, just kind of learning what they're doing, where they're going, and how they respond to the landscape as it is today in 2025, a heavily human-orientated landscape. We've got a lot of challenges ahead, but ultimately I think we are making positive steps forward.
Yeah, I would think at some point you would need to, or you maybe already are doing this, which is educating the surrounding communities about the wildcats and how to interact with them or not to interact with them, as you might say. So I know in towns where we have moose in Vermont, bears, deer everywhere, but mainly you don't want to go playing with the black bears or the moose. You have to learn how to live with the wildlife, right? And so from your perspective, I would assume that there would be some education in the communities about the wildcats and what to do if you see one.
Yeah, exactly. We have great support from a lot of the community, which has been incredible. However, there has been some instances, for example, of both like chicken predation to the dismay of lots of affected owners. So we have created specific guidance designed to assist domestic poultry keepers to living alongside wildcats and other predators like badgers and pine martens that we have here. And we're also trialing like a loaning of predator-proof coops to try and protect poultry, and working with local farmers to provide financial support to protect larger coops of the chickens. So yeah, it's definitely about coexisting with wildcats as a new predator in the landscape, which is going to take some time, I think. But most people are very supportive of the project, which has been great.
It's fascinating, the coexistence of trying to find the balance. So finding that balance with the domestic cats, with the chickens, the farm animals, as well as with the wildcats. I mean, if you find that fine balance, I think you will be golden out there for sure. Coexistence is something that's extremely challenging for us on a worldwide basis. So I would say that is a very incredible objective that you might have. I don't know if you agree with that statement.
I think human wildlife conflict in general, whether you're talking about the Scottish Highlands or in Africa or in Asia, is one of the most difficult topics, I think, to get to the crux of and keep everybody happy, especially in a world where we're fighting for resources. But hopefully, at least this project might be one of the successes, and we can keep this native felid in Scotland for years to come. And although we do have the challenges of hybridization, hopefully TNVR is one of the key tools that we will use to improve cat welfare, whether it's pet cat or feral cat or wildcat.
Excellent. Lara, if people are interested in finding out more about this research and the work that you're doing, how would they do that?
So I would suggest visiting the Saving Wildcats website for more learning, news articles, and keeping up with what guidance we're producing. You can also sign up to our newsletter for updates on the wildcats being released and the ones being born in the zoo. They'd be the two main avenues for learning more.
Excellent. Lara, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on my show, and I hope we'll have you on again in the future.
Thank you very much for your time.
That's it for this week. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. We love to hear what you think, and a 5-star review really helps others find the show. You can also join the conversation with listeners, cat caretakers, and me on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single show. Thanks for listening, and thank you for everything that you do to help create a safe and healthy world for cats.